The breakout of riots in Minneapolis, Minnesota was a powder keg long in the making. The evidence for pre-planning and setting up a situation for a disaster is overwhelming. What you are about to see is part of a 2-year undercover investigation into the leftist radicalization embedded within the climate justice movements, one in particular, the Sunrise Movement.
These escalations, these actions can be really, really dangerous.
Uprisings, including actions like burning buildings, are legitimate and powerful forms of resistance.
So last night, when that police station went up in flames, me and my girlfriend, we poured shots. We were happy.
This moment in history is a coin toss between freedom and fascism.
We are going to show you how the Sunrise Movement played an instrumental role in carrying out mayhem in the name of bringing about the Green New Deal. We have sources within these groups to get to the bottom of where all of this leftist radicalization is coming from and what their end game is.
And any politician must back a Green New Deal or make way for the leadership who will.
We have their plans, manuals, intercepted communications, and have recordings of their Zoom chats. The reason why the screens of these people in the Zoom are blurred is because they are minors. What we didn't expect to find were organizers radicalizing middle school and high school aged children, teaching them military tactics and preparation for high-risk actions.
If you get a good liver or kidney shot, it's pretty much crippling. You're going to be doubled over and in a lot of pain. If you break one of the floating ribs, which are small and right down here, those are also very painful. It's hard to move after that. It's hard to catch your breath. So one good body shot could potentially give you all the time in the world to run away while they're doubled over in pain. Right. Or really put a beating on them after that if you really don't like the person.
The idea of self-defense as not simply you're being acted upon by an aggressor, but it's a kind of a decision you make to fight back. My nose, side of my head. If I come into you, you could definitely do it for sure. But like me from here and just feel like,
and then you want to follow it up with something else.
Yeah. So if that doesn't knock them out, then yeah, the nose, the face, the eyes, poke the eyes with the other. Absolutely. Yeah.
Some of these tactics include escalation provocation techniques, blocking freeway traffic, and how to get arrested, bogging down law enforcement in the name of destroying capitalism to make way for their Green New Deal.
Why be in school if we're not going to have a future?
What some parents may have thought were innocent youth organizations, genuinely fostered and ran by children, are actually monolithic structures with private intelligence military contractors and foreign interests influencing children to carry out their subversive objectives.
Everybody get arrested.
Powers come down.
Behind the Sunrise Movement is an organization called Momentum.
Just some quick things to keep in mind is that when we escalate, our target is always the public. So even if we're targeting a senator or another decision maker, escalation should be a response, not a reaction to what's going on. And I think again, just what that means is your escalation should be deeply grounded in your movement's DNA. It should be deeply grounded in your strategy, not just a knee-jerk sort of bottlenecked reaction.
Instead of studying in a classroom, we're building an army of young people across the country starting right now. So we'll be thousands strong by the time the election arrives.
They are calling on children to help escalate the mayhem.
These escalations, these actions can be really, really dangerous for a lot of folks. There's a lot of, especially I think with escalated actions, often police are involved, or there's there could be nasty onlookers, or you're doing an action in DC and there's a bunch of really evil MAGA teens over in the corner.
Notice they want privileged white suburban children to be on the front lines of the risk actions.
A really important thing to think about as Sunrise, which is right now a predominantly white and predominantly upper middle, like managerial class movement.
Every one of us has a lot of work to do to end these systems, and the more privilege we have in relationship to Blackness, the more responsibility we have to fight to end these systems.
Organizers of these youth non-government organizations, or Youngos, embellish white supremacy as a systemic problem, hyper-focusing on statistically rare instances of racial inequality and injustice, while ignoring great strides of progress the United States has made over the past century towards equal opportunity and criminal justice reform.
Do you think that race plays a part in wealth distribution, or either a mindset that you can't or cannot? Yeah.
No.
You don't?
No, I don't. Hey, you and I, we're proof. Why would race have anything to do with it?
A lot of white kids love rap.
Yes.
Explain that. What does that say to you? What's the message of it? What's the bigger picture of it?
I thought that was clearly a message that there was no such thing as racism.
To anyone who believes that America is institutionally racist, I'll challenge you to do this. Go into communities and deal with problems by examining the roots of those problems. Education, a family structure.
What's your thought on Black Lives Matter?
Don't come at me with that dumb man.
President Trump has done a lot that positively affected the Black community, but you won't ever hear the mainstream media talking about that.
Not all people who are locked up are individuals who don't deserve a second chance. And so this is about second chances and giving people opportunity.
The White House is championing a criminal justice reform bill that would, among other things, implement sentencing reforms, create programs to help inmates thrive on the outside, and grant early release for completion of those programs.
This council will coordinate efforts across the entire federal government to deliver jobs, investment, and growth to the communities that need it the most.
The Green New Deal is not about climate change. It's about climate justice. Essentially, they're blaming climate change on white people.
We won't have a Green New Deal that works for everyone unless we concurrently address the sickness that lies in the soul of America in things like white supremacy.
The events that erupted in Minneapolis, Minnesota, were not a spontaneous reaction to the murder of George Floyd. These were well-planned events, anticipating some perfect trigger points to bring about the new normal, a world without police, without borders, without industry, without wealth, without private property, without an economy. A world based on communist ideals embedded within the Green New Deal.
Organizers on the ground need money right now. We got to move that money to our comrades.
However, in order to normalize policies set forth by the Green New Deal, crises have to be capitalized on to further their agenda while destroying the great accomplishments of civil rights movements of the past.
The facts show that 50 years of epic civil rights battles for specific rights, and after 3 decades of changing social and political realities, a once oppressed people are no longer that.
The breakout of riots in Minneapolis, Minnesota was a powder keg long in the making. From abusive police training, utilizing warrior and fear-driven tactics, to key radical players and organizations put in place.
And it's khakis and a white shirt covered in swastikas, goes up in flames.
Thousands of people here, and the police don't really have it separated between the people pro-Trump and the people against Trump.
Trump supporters and this is Minneapolis, Minnesota.
What led up to George Floyd's death was avoidable and unnecessary. The evidence for pre-planning and setting up a situation for a disaster is overwhelming. The goal was to kick off a national and international revolution of the likes the world has never seen, based off preventable and even instigated situations, creating political capital for leftist radicalization. In 2017, the stage had been set.
It needs to change now. It needs to start with each and every one of you.
The youth climate strike at the Minnesota State Capitol, a breeding ground for recruitment, was recorded and promoted by Unicorn Riot, a leftist media organization based out of Minneapolis, with video libraries promoting Antifa, who provided the most up-and-close coverage of the Minneapolis riots. Less than 2 days after George Floyd's murder circulated on social media, the Sunrise Movement organizers are already calling their young members to action.
We are currently witnessing, an uprising. I believe it's extremely important that we come together as a movement to look at the roots of this violence and resistance and what our work has to do with ending white supremacy. We are here to fight back collectively against that system.
So Black organizers and multiracial groups of organizers in Minneapolis have been building power in the city for years now. And part of what they've been able to do with that power is to bring a lot of the city on their side.
So not only does this organizer admit that the apparent chaos is organized and orchestrated, but suggested that setting buildings on fire is a legitimate form of resistance.
What we are seeing is not just chaos, we're actually seeing resistance and organizing. And what we know is that uprisings, including actions like burning buildings, are legitimate and powerful forms of resistance, and are resisting brutal and violent and dehumanizing systems like white supremacy. And that property is something that can be recovered.
So behind this alleged climate change movement is the goal of abolishing law enforcement and no longer having police.
These are organizations that have built strength and power over the past 6 years of the Black Lives Matter movement in Minneapolis, running strategic campaigns to defund the Minneapolis Police Department, oriented around a vision of the abolition of police. So the idea that we're actually fighting for a world without police. And these campaigns that folks are running are strategic and they're winnable. And we can make huge gains toward it in moments of uprisings like these.
Notice they are segregationists, not much different from the white supremacists they point at as perpetuating systemic white supremacy.
Well, more than anything else, slavery and segregation are America's foundational sins, of course. For a century after the Civil War, America remained a racially divided land, where in some places, whites and non-whites were kept apart with the force of law. If you attended school in the last 40 years, the end of that system was a big deal. It was celebrated. Everyone was happy about it. But it turns out we may have had it wrong, at least according to Columbia University, because the school just set aside rooms that can only be used by people on the basis of their skin color, or non-white or gay rights group. Straight whites, not allowed. Sean Ryan is a Columbia student who co-chairs the committee that recommended that new policy, and he joins us to explain the thinking behind it. Hey, Sean, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Tucker.
The idea behind this kind of challenges a lot of our assumptions. I mean, if you can't be around people who are different from you, if being around them makes you so uncomfortable you need your own place to be, that suggests that the underlying assumption about diversity is wrong, which is, of course, being around people who are different from you is a good thing, right?
So thanks so much, Tucker, again, for having me on the show. So, when 2 rooms became available in our student center pretty recently, we looked across our community to build broad consensus among students, student groups, student councils to figure out what would be the best way to use these rooms to meet the needs of our community. And so, this decision, really came at a time when we've been having a lot of issues around suicide and mental health and isolation. And so we ended up deciding on dedicating one space to LGBT students and the other to students of color, and this was a data-driven decision. And so, what these spaces will do will provide support for those groups to fight the isolationism, and also to really hit your point about what you were saying was segregation. What I think you mean is exclusivity.
Okay, well, I'm for empathy, and I'm certainly against people harming themselves. But the underlying assumption of what you just said is that being around people who are different is traumatic, and that, of course, was the justification for segregation. So
that's not really what I'm saying, Tucker. What I'm saying is that...
Well, then you're suggesting they killed themselves because they had to be around other people?
No, what I'm saying is that... That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that isolationism can lead to suicide. And what we've done here is that look at our community and identify our needs. Isolation, not
mean like not
feeling
invading other
like
countries,
you can come together with others and really share your experiences. It's important to feel like you have people around you that understand you, and there are differences in these communities, and so it's really important for people to have that opportunity to come together and also provide the opportunity for anyone in the community, regardless of background, skin color, anything, to come together and hear that.
So groups of white students could use the room set aside for students of color.
They could use the room to come together for programming with students from those backgrounds, so that we can share.
What if they felt uncomfortable? I mean, because obviously Columbia has a relatively small percentage of white men there. I mean, they're a distinct minority on campus. So if they wanted to set up their own area, would you be for that?
So look, all communities have to prioritize all communities, businesses, organizations have to prioritize their.
So it's a simple question.
No, they have to prioritize
that or not.
Look, they have to prioritize their resources based on the needs of their community.
Well, according to you, but what if a bunch of straight white kids got together and said, we feel oppressed here by people perhaps like you, Sean, and we need our own student-sponsored, school-paid-for room to gather with just straight white guys? Would you say, I get that, that's okay? Or would you not?
I think that given the data that we have around suicide and the pressing needs of our community and the limited space that we have, there are other ways in which that space can be used.
Oh, so no, in other words, so it's a double standard. So certain races get their own rooms and others don't.
What I'm saying is that we're reacting to needs and we're providing support for communities that have demonstrated those needs.
But what you're doing is using imprecise, silly academic talk to dodge my question. So
no, not at all.
Let me ask you one more time.
I can't think of anything more real than suicide, Tucker.
Well, I'm not denying the reality of suicide.
No, you said I was using academic talk. I'm not doing that at all.
No, I'm contesting your assumption about what causes suicide.
No,
you
don't think that isolationism causes suicide?
I don't know what isolationism is. It's actually a foreign policy term here in Washington.
So,
I guess it means not being around people who
when
are
I say
like
isolation,
you?
I mean feeling, cutting yourself off, not feeling like you have a community. And there are differences among these communities.
Let's get deeper here. So you're saying that people are more comfortable, maybe have better mental health when they're around people who are just like them. And I'm saying
I feel like
maybe that's true, but it's kind of a radical thing to say because that, of course, again, was what the people who supported segregation said.
Tucker,
and what
is it
the
a radical
liberals said in response was, no, we need diversity. You've got to be around people who are different.
Is it a radical thing to say that, somebody who is closeted gay and, feels, harm in their community because of that, not in the Columbia community, but maybe at home, to come together with somebody else who's openly gay and share experiences and feel more comfortable. Is that not a good thing for our community?
Well, I don't know. I thought that it was good to be with people who are different from you. I thought diversity was our strength, but you're saying it's not.
Yeah, I think that's important too. No. This is about
weakness, and I think you think it's our weakness.
This is about diversity. Look, it's about getting people together to share experiences.
Too much. So that's not diversity. That's sameness is what you're seeking. But let me ask you this really quick. What if a straight person were to sneak into the all-gay room? Would you do a gay check? How would you know? Well, if you're setting aside a room for all gay people, what if someone said, hey, I'm gay too, because, he wanted to use the room. Is there a gay test, or how do you ascertain gayness?
As I said, anybody can come into these spaces to talk about issues. This is not a test. Anybody is welcome.
You said that white groups are not allowed to use the black student lounges without the presence of black students. And I'm asking you, could straight students try and pass? I mean, how are you defining gay exactly? I mean, if you could be precise.
Are you asking me what is gay?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm asking you. You're the one who's setting up the rooms. It's not a question I've actually entertained before, but I've never seen a room reserved for people who are gay. So I'm asking you what it means.
It means it's a space that provides support for that community in which other people who are not from that community can come in and engage.
But how do you know you're a member of the community? What are the entrance requirements for membership in that community? I mean, again, I'm not being mean. They're your rooms. So I'm asking you, what are the rules here?
So the way it'll work is that there'll be student groups from each of these communities that will be able to book those spaces. And when they provide programming, other students from other backgrounds will also be able to join.
Okay. I think you may have some people sneaking in. That's just a guess.
So we are going to head into breakout groups based on our racial identities.
Yep. So white folks, you're going to stay here. Just don't click anything. Just hold tight. Black African-American folks, here's your link. And non-Black POC folks, here you go as well.
Gabby's going to redrop in the chat the 4 groups that are on the front lines of this fight. Black Visions, Reclaim the Block, Louisville Community Bail Fund, and Dream Defenders.
Wow, they were already in the works to get funds to rioters to help them mobilize and bail them out of jail. Keith Ellison, an Antifa-supporting Democrat, former representative and deputy chair of the Democrat National Convention, is the current Attorney General for the state of Minnesota. Ellison was in a position to push for criminal justice reform prior to George Floyd's murder. So why didn't he? Ilhan Omar, the radical progressive Minnesota representative whose district includes Minneapolis, was alleged to have been seen mingling with Antifa protesters at a Trump rally in Minnesota 7 months earlier with her married boyfriend, Tim Minette. Though the Democrat mayor demanded that brutal police tactics be restricted in Minneapolis, the tactics were allowed to continue. Notice the organizations and some of the most outspoken Democrats against President Trump actually facilitated, if not helped, in the pre-planning of these riots that uniquely happened in Democrat-controlled areas. Is it because they have Democrat attorney generals, DAs, mayors, governors, etc., all ready to let these rioters right back out of jail when they get caught? Ilhan Omar has been an apologist for militant groups fighting in Syria, fighting alongside with Antifa militant groups.
Groups like the International Revolutionary People's Guerrilla Forces, it is clear that this is the time for anarchist revolutionaries to act without hesitation.
Where was she when preventative measures could have been taken to prevent the riots?
Facial recognition has confirmed that Ilhan Omar and her boyfriend Tim Minette were in attendance at the riots following the Trump rally in Minneapolis.
Oh yeah. And did I mention her daughter was promoting Antifa during the riots? And the governor of Minnesota's daughter was tweeting out police locations to Antifa during the riots. Or how about Keith Ellison's son, a legislator in Minnesota, calling for police abolition? And what about Representative Kaine, Hillary Clinton's running mate? His son's involved with these Antifa groups as well. The person that we know inside sent off a bunch of their internal communiques to the DOJ, and then, interestingly, Discord put out a public statement saying they won't help aid terrorism and put out a warning. Then, on Twitter, we saw lots of these leftist Black Lives Matter and Sunrise Movement kids all saying, don't use Discord anymore, switch to Signal. It's also interesting that Jack Dorsey also at the exact prime moment put out a tweet saying everyone switch to Signal.
19 of our 30 endorsed candidates won their seats. And we endorsed and elected some amazing candidates, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, and Rashida Tlaib.
The same Sunrise Movement organizers that helped get the squad into office also helped set the stage for the mass protests, burning of buildings, escalation of destruction in Minneapolis and throughout the United States, using George Floyd's death as their trigger moment to launch their communist revolution. On June 1st, after days of riots, burning of businesses, many of which Black-owned, after killings and mob beatings on the street, AOC participated in a private Zoom conference with leadership from the Sunrise Movement, promoting more escalation.
There are folks that are dismayed at the violence and at the destruction. When we talk about police abolition, and people say that this is a radical demand, you know what police abolition looks like? It looks like a white, affluent suburb. And when it comes to environmental justice, it's the same thing. And so I just thank each and every one of you for leading that systemic change, for ushering that systemic change.
Why did it take so long for the police to file charges and for the district attorney's office to move towards criminal prosecution? There was plenty of video evidence circulating on social media to justify immediate action by local law enforcement. Why? Is it because it allowed for more escalation and shift of blame towards the organizers' true goal, going after President Trump, his supporters, and the American justice system? Why was the graphic video of George Floyd allowed to circulate on social media without age restrictions? Many violent graphic videos and videos committing crimes and promoting criminal activity were allowed to circulate on social media. Why? This stirred the pot, invoking rage and racial division, sparking mayhem across the nation. Social media platforms also served as tools for rioters and looters to communicate, coordinate, and undermine law enforcement's ability to quell the situation.
Last night, when that police station went up in flames,
Me and my girlfriend, we poured shots. We were happy. It was a celebration in this house.
Multiple police stations in Democrat-ran areas were set on fire and destroyed. Why?
Running strategic campaigns to defund the Minneapolis Police Department, oriented around a vision of the abolition of police. So the idea that we're actually fighting for a world without police.
And watch, the charges against the police officers probably won't stick. And another set of race riots will be launched demonizing Trump and his base. Not the Democrat leadership that created this mess. Oh no, white people that foolishly take the bait and grovel thinking that their submission to skin-deep guilt will serve as their penitence for fake racial division.
I work for Black Lives Matter. I'm sorry that I scared you. But since I work for that company, my CEO has told me to come out today and to bring you on your knees because you have white privilege. And could you just please apologize for your white privilege? Just apologize?
I am. You a racist? You a racist?
I don't think so.
Yeah, whatever. What is a racist, guy? You don't even know what it is. It's not in the dictionary. It's not even an English word, man. It's a game that you play on a street corner.
This is just the beginning. In our next video, we will show never-before clips of Sunrise Movement organizers claiming to have been sexually assaulted by Democrat presidential candidate Joe Biden and other Democrat leaders.
Lucy Flores started coming forward about Biden last year, it opened up this whole space to talk about this that hadn't existed before. What he did to her and to me and to other women who came forward was wrong and harmful.
My story is one that I was assaulted by a currently elected Democrat.
We're going to keep pressuring Biden, and we have a lot of leverage right now to do that. And right now what we're really trying to lean into is hearing feedback from folks in the movement, hearing about what people think is the most strategic thing for us to do, and we're really not rushing into anything.
They openly discuss exploiting their own victimization to leverage Joe Biden into having AOC as part of his campaign's climate change task force team, while teaching middle and high school children how to sacrifice their own moral standards for political gain.